Hello, and welcome to this segment of the Women in 3D Printing Next Gen AMA Career Interviews. My name is Sanjana Narayanan, and I'll be your host. In this series, I'll be introducing you to some of the most accomplished and inspiring women in additive manufacturing, so you can learn about what it takes to build a career in the industry. 3D printing has been applied in almost every industry, and the fashion industry is no exception. But how can you get involved with 3D printing in fashion? In today's interview, we'll be hearing from Alleyne. Ashley is the 3D printing assistant at Tapestry, the parent company of Coach, Kate Spade, and Stuart Weitzman. She's also a design entrepreneur in residence at the Mix Lab. She's 3D printing a wide variety of objects, from guitar prototypes to jewelry and even home decor. In just a moment, we'll be hearing about Ashley's journey with 3D printing and how you can pursue a career like hers. Hi, Ashley. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be here virtually.
Of course. Let's get right into it. So you originally intended to pursue fashion photography, but a 3D printing class changed this. So can you tell us a bit more about the moment when you realized that you wanted to pursue 3D printing?
Sure. Okay. So yeah, it was my senior year. I'm about to graduate. So I was like, okay, let me take this 3D printing class because it seemed cool, but I really needed it for the credits. So I was like, okay, let me take this. And I took the class and it was like really interesting because you learn about innovation and different innovation processes, and you learn 3D printing along the way. But in the end of the semester / winter semester, I started 3D printing a guitar, and I kept working on it. I made it in a 3D software. And then once I 3D printed it and was full size, I was like, oh my God, I can literally make whatever I want. That's when it clicked. I was like, oh my God, I want to do this. So then I took the second 3D printing class, and then I really liked it. It was more about innovation. And then we also learned how to use the Formlabs 3D printer. The first class was like FDM 3D printing. And then I graduated, so I was like, oh, okay, what do I do now? Like, I don't know what to do. So then I decided to go back to school for 3D printing, and I got my degree in 3D printing and innovation, and that's kind of the spiel.
That's such an amazing story. And following this 3D printing class, you did work in a university 3D printing lab. So what did you get to explore through this position?
Yeah, so basically it's really funny because it happened by accident. So the two professors there, they're both amazing, Ian and Jason. And basically one of them came up to me and they saw that I was working on the 3D printed guitar and like, oh my God, that's so cool. And then one of them came up to me and was like, oh, you're going to be a 3D printing lab technician now. I was like, no, I'm not. Because at first, like, I didn't want to do it because I was like, I'm about to graduate. Like, I it's not paid, so I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. And then he was like, well, you hear all the time, which he was right. Like, I used to stay in the 3D printing lab till like 1 o'clock in the morning because I just loved it. I had my great friends. And then he was like, so it's time to give back. And I was like, all right, you're right. So then I really learned through that, like how to really fix 3D printers, because it was a full 3D printing lab. There were like 40 like FDM 3D printers, and then there's like 5 to 8 Formlabs 3D printers. So I really learned how to fix the 3D printers. I learned how to take them apart, like troubleshoot issues with it, because like there's 100 students using 40 3D printers, so they're constantly being used all the time, and they kind of break. This particular printer, not going to say what, broke a lot all the time. So basically, I learned how to really fix the 3D printers, troubleshoot any issues, learn how to do things when like the extruders are clogged, all that stuff. And when they broke, I really learned how to take them apart and put them back together. And then I really learned how to use the Formlabs 3D printers, which we learned a bit in the second class. But as a lab tech, I really learned how to use them and learn how to use the technology. So it was really, really cool. It was really helpful. And I'm really glad I did it, because at first I was like, I don't want to do this. And I'm so happy I did, because I think it really helped me. It was a huge part of like me being able to get the job I have now.
That sounds really exciting. And after graduating with a bachelor's degree in photography and a degree in 3D printing and innovation, you worked as a freelance 3D printing design consultant. So, what were some of your favorite projects to work on?
Okay, so I think my favorite too was the first one. This is the first one I worked on that my professor, recommended me for. I was supposed to be editing this 3D printing file that was a water filtration system by a scientist who I was helping slash professor. And basically, I had to edit the file printing and I had to work with it in the 3D software. And then I printed it on the Formlabs 3D printers. And basically, that helped me learn all the kind of different Formlabs materials, like, the standard materials, but also engineering flexible resin. So it ended up being a flexible prototype that held water in it because it was a water filtration system. So that was the first one. And then I got to work on this architecture project where I had to create a 3D printed building from a photograph that I took. And this is like, I didn't 3D scan it. Like I couldn't 3D scan it. Like I just had to make it from a photo. I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. So basically, I worked on it. Like I had to get all the details of the building, the font right, and everything. And so I did that, and I think that really helps me learn that it's okay to like do things over because this is my that was my second project because and like everything was going well, and then I was getting the 3D printing, and then it wasn't 3D printing properly, so I had help with my friends and my professor, and they were like, you got to do this over. I was like, work so hard on this. Like, what do you mean? Hey, it's okay when things don't work. You just got to sometimes do things over.
Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that you're currently the 3D printing assistant at Tapestry and a design entrepreneur in residence at MixLab. So could you tell us more about what you do as a part of those roles?
Sure. Okay. So I am the 3D printing assistant at Tapestry, which is the parent company of Coach, Kate Spade, and Stuart Weitzman. Basically, I do 3D printing for all three brands. I'm in charge of the maintaining the printer lab, preparing prints for 3D printing, validating prints for 3D printing, and also post processing the 3D prints. So that's a huge part of my job. I do 3D printing for all three brands. And then as a design entrepreneur in residence at the Mix Lab, I am in the process of creating my own business slash jewelry line and home decor line. So basically, I'm there all the time prototyping my designs in 3D prints using FDM 3D printing, SLA 3D printing, and basically just keep on reiterating all my designs until I get the final product.
That's so cool and extremely creative. And
Hey.
from your experience in the intersection of fashion and 3D printing, what are some exciting trends and developments in this field?
Okay, so good news. It's kind of what's really hot right now is 3D in the fashion world. 3D is really hot right now, and I'm just talking about the 3D world in general and not like Coach, just in general. That all like fashion brands are heading towards 3D, and I think the pandemic has really shifted to kind of push that because, for example, if instead of having a clothing sample, having multiple clothing samples until you get the final product, you can just make that in 3D and it'll look as photorealistic as possible. So that eliminates the need of having like a physical sample, which ends up making, being more sustainable, reducing companies like carbon footprint. And also it's a lot cheaper to do. So that's where the fashion world is kind of headed right now because the pandemic, like it's kind of pushed that. And a lot of fashion companies in general are also incorporating 3D in other ways, like using 3D for the runway shows and 3Ds to show their collections. So 3D is huge in the fashion industry, and I think it's going to open up more jobs. And also, sustainability is huge right now in the fashion industry. So I think there's going to be a lot more jobs in the 3D world. in fashion and also hopefully with 3D printing.
And speaking of fashion, 3D printing jewelry has also become a really strong passion of yours. So, how has the 3D printing technology helped you in jewelry design?
Okay, that's so funny because before 3D printing, I literally had no experience with jewelry whatsoever. Like I went to school for photography, so like was literally I'm taking all the photography classes, I'm taking all the recommended classes. I'm like, I'm getting out of here, like I'm done. So the thing is also at the time the school I went to axed the jewelry program, so there really was no jewelry classes. So it's funny because, you know, it's my best friend's birthday, but I was in college, so I couldn't afford to get her a gift. I'm like, it's the day before her birthday. What do I do? And so then I decided, okay, I'll 3D print her something. So I basically went into 3D software. I created something within an hour. I was like, all right, this looks pretty good. So I 3D printed it, came out, and I gave it to her. And it's just like, oh my God, like I love this like so much. It wasn't like, oh, you know, your mom's like, oh, this is great. Like she was like, she really loved them so much. And I was like, oh, okay, I might be onto something here. And then it was Mother's Day, and I'm like, oh, I'm in college, you know, I can't really give my mom a gift, you know, I can't really afford it right now. And so basically, I was like making her a 3D printed earrings, but the thing is, they had to function a certain way, and the tolerance wasn't quite right. So it was the night before Mother's Day. I was like, oh, okay, I don't know what to do now. So I actually made her these earrings. Literally, I made them in 5 minutes. They're probably a little hard to see because my Zoom background keeps popping in and out. But I made them for her in 5 minutes, and then I 3D printed them out. I'm like, okay, I hope these are going to be good enough. And then it's funny because the night before I was going to give them to her, I had a dream that my mom was like, oh my God, I hate these. These are terrible. I was like, oh no. So I woke up, I was like, oh, this is not going to go well. And then I gave them to my mom. She's like, oh my God, I love these so much. And it wasn't like, you know, my mom just being my mom, but she was like, really loved them. And then, you know, I made myself a pair, and then, which I'm wearing now. And basically, you know, when I go down the street and stuff, like people come up to me, it's like, oh my God, where'd you get your earrings from? And I'm like, I made them. They're 3D printed. Like, I want a pair. Give me a pair. How much are they? And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I'm in a process now of starting my own 3D printed jewelry business and home decor too. So that's what I'm working on right now.
That's super exciting. Thank you so much for sharing that. Your earrings do look very beautiful. And to conclude our interview, what advice would you give to a student that's interested in pursuing a career in 3D printing like yours?
Okay, so I wrote a lot of things down because I didn't want to forget anything. Okay, but the first thing that I recommend doing is volunteering. I know at first I was like, I don't want to volunteer, but I'm so happy I did because it is so helpful. Even though 3D printing is really accessible right now, it's like, you know, you can learn how to do it on your own, but it's also really helpful if you have someone to guide you along the way. So I would highly recommend volunteering at either a local maker space, a 3D printing lab, a library. You know, a lot of libraries now have 3D printers. See if a local museum has a 3D printing maker space, because like one by me does. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And also, see if you can volunteer for a local architect slash industrial designer, because they tend to use 3D printers a lot. The second thing is also have a community around you. When I was doing the 3D printing program in school, I was lucky because I had two great professors. And I also had friends who did 3D printing who we all helped each other. It was a really collaborative environment. So that's great with organizations like Women in 3D Printing, having a community like that around the world. Also, even things, because we're in a pandemic right now, even things like Reddit, you know, they have like a lot of subreddits on about 3D printing on Reddit. So that's also really helpful. I also think, you know, just having a lot of friends, volunteering at and doing online events, and seeing if there's other events like at universities for high school students, younger students, because I know at Montclair State, the professors that, you know, I have had, they also have summer workshops for high school kids and for kids who are younger. So just try to look out for programs like that. And also the third thing is learn everything related to 3D printing. Don't just, it's great to know 3D printing, but I also highly recommend 3D modeling too, like learning how to do that, because I feel like, yeah, you can go on Thingiverse and, download files, which is cool, like do that. But like when you're first starting out, but that's like totally cool too, especially when you're starting out. But I think there's nothing more rewarding than 3D printing like your own design and it coming out the printer. It's like, I did that. So I would highly recommend that. And also learn like other skills too, like, try different 3D softwares out, see what you like and you don't like. And also, you might learn a lot more things, keep trying things out. And also, try to learn how to render fashion items in 3D software, like clothing, things like that, because I feel like that's going to be a huge part of the future. The fourth thing is get a hold of a 3D printer. And I do not mean buy one. I'm not saying go buy one. I'm not saying that because, where I am right now, like I can't have a 3D printer. So I totally understand. But I totally mean like getting, seeing if your local library has a 3D printer, finding a local makerspace, um, finding a museum that has a makerspace. Just try to figure out if there's a makerspace around you. Try out 3D printing classes, doing things like that. And also, since we're all kind of quarantined together, because your parents might not be like, okay, you're allowed to get a 3D printer, because I totally understand that, because my parents think, I'm going to burn the house down. But also see if you can start with something similar, like a 3D printing pen, because it is the same kind of technology. It uses the same material. The material goes into the pen, heats it up, and it acts like a 3D printer. That's what I got for my cousin for her birthday, because I'm like, I'm trying to get her into 3D printing. So, and she made a pair of sunglasses in like 5 minutes. So even just starting from something like that is like, I think that's totally worth checking out. And the fifth thing is, I'm getting there. Don't be afraid of the 3D printer. Don't be afraid to break it, because I know when I started out, I was so scared to do anything, because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to break the 3D printer. But honestly, like if you break it, that's actually kind of the best thing that could happen, because you really learn how to use the 3D printer, because you learn how to fix it. You learn how to take it apart, you learn how to fix things, and you learn how the different parts work. So it's okay if you break it. That's actually kind of a good thing, but don't break it on purpose, obviously. And the sixth thing is don't be afraid of 3D print. And by that I mean like, oh, I don't have experience and blah blah blah. I don't think I could 3D print this, because I literally had no experience in 3D like jewelry whatsoever. Now I'm doing 3D printed jewelry. I literally have never built a guitar before in my life, and I've 3D printed a full size guitar. So I really don't let I don't have experience and blah 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 hold you back. You challenge yourself and be like, I can do this, and then do it, because you will.
That's so extremely inspirational. Thank you so much for sharing that. And this
Problem.
does conclude our interview for today. And Ashley, I do want to thank you once more for joining us and speaking about your career journey with 3D printing.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in for our interview with Ashley. For more information about women in 3D printing, be sure to visit our website. And if you found this video helpful, please hit the like and subscribe button below. We hope to see you for our next segment.